Swedish IPA. These are some examples of Swedish Hazy IPAs. And the interesting thing is that they are a bit different from American Hazy IPAs, which of course was and still is a big inspiration for Swedish breweries. What I've heard brewers and beer journalists say many times is that the Swedish Hazy IPAs, the New England IPAs, are less sweet, has a little bit more bitter bite, and are also generally, I think, less boozy. So all of these beers on the table are around 6.5% ABV, but this one being just 5.9% and this one being 6.8. It's still around that perfect for me sweet spot where it has enough alcohol to bring all the flavors up to the surface without going into that overripe boozy territory, which I don't like. For me personally, and I think for most Swedes, it's hard to get your hands on American beer, so I haven't really tried enough, but I just have a feeling I like the Swedish stuff better. This one, for instance, from Stigbergets, the Scandinavian West Coast IPA, a confusing name because it's not the West Coast styled IPA. You can check out this video later to find out why it has that name, but that is probably the most famous and most sold New England styled IPA. It's a beer I always use to compare other hazy IPAs, and of course I love it. Also, this one from Oppigårds, the New Sweden IPA, is great and kind of in the same style, and both of these beers can be bought on pretty much any Systembolaget in Sweden. The rest of them are, available locally. I have ordered them, which I often do. So to me this will be super interesting because I haven't tried hazy IPAs side by side like this before. And I've also written down the different hops on the beers where I could find the information. So this will range from really tropical New England IPAs with relatively low bitterness to one of the most bitter hazy IPAs I've ever tasted. So I thought we would pour the beers all at the same time, and that way I also have another opportunity to show my beer glass collection. Stigberget, meaning the Stig Mountain, is a district in Gothenburg where the brewery first was situated when production started in 2013. Oppigårds is one of the largest craft breweries in Sweden and started production in 2003. The brewery is situated outside the town Hedemora, a little less than 200 kilometers northwest of Stockholm. OO is a small but praised brewery in Gothenburg, and the name comes from the first letters in the founders' names, Olle and Olof. Brygghuset Finn started production in 2013 and has taken its name from an old Swedish story, the legend of Finn the Giant. The brewery is situated in Landskrona on the southwest coast of Sweden. Poppels has their main brewery located in Jonsered, just northeast of Gothenburg. Production started in 2012 and has since then grown to one of the largest in Sweden. Remmarlöv is situated close to Eslöv in the south of Sweden. Most of the raw ingredients are local and often even from their own farm. Grebbestad is a small town on the west coast of Sweden. The brewery is one of the oldest craft breweries in Sweden, founded in 1995. What a juice party, right? It looks like the tropical New England IPA from Finn is the darkest. It has added fruits, so maybe that's why. Guava and mango, I think. Also, they don't look as hazy and creamy as they usually do. Maybe that's because I haven't poured in everything. Maybe I actually should do that and maybe swirl it just a little bit. Yeah, this is the way. So this is maybe the most iconic Swedish New England IPA, the Seagull, Måsen, as we say in Swedish. It's so tropical and fresh. Now I want to learn about the hops. It's Citra and Mosaic, and probably also Simcoe. Lots of pineapple, mango, also something floral, elder floral-esque, and kind of sweet cookies, sponge cake with a little bit of sweet lime. But I want to dig in straight away. Skål! This is so good. You have that sponge cake with a little bit of lemon freshness, a lot of tropical fruits, mango, pineapple, definitely, maybe some passion fruit, orange zest. And then in the back end, you have this grassy, dank, both freshness and bitterness. It's heading in the stinging nettle direction, almost a bit minty, but I would say it's maybe a mild, fresh dankness. This will be a classic forever. A little bit of water in between. I always drink water in between the beers, so you know. And then let's fill up the Oppigårds New Sweden. Oh yes, baby. The name New Sweden is, I think, a play with words. New England, which gave this style its name, is a region in the States up northeast. And New Sweden, I think, was a colony at one point. I don't know if you can see any traces of it anymore. So, of course, New England, New Sweden. It has a similar tropical fruitiness, maybe not the same grassy freshness, in the aroma at least. The hops are supposed to be Mosaic, Citra, and Simcoe, so the same as in the last beer, but also Equanot and maybe Chinook. So a real hoppy bomb. Yeah, the problem with filling the glass all the way up is it's harder to get the aroma. So let's dig in instead. Skål! I think it's a bit milder maybe. Of course, each batch is a little bit different, but because they sell so much of these two beers, they are pretty consistent, but I do get different experiences every time. You have the sponge cake again, the tropical fruits. There is a lingering bitterness in the finish. The more hops, you have added, the less each of them can shine. So for me, as an amateur, I would think the previous beer had, more hops. I want to go back to the Seagull just to compare these two giants. Let's see. It's much more dank and punchy, but as I remember it, so can the New Sweden be. Maybe not just this batch. Yeah, the New Sweden is definitely smoother. It also has a tiny bit of that flavor I've tried to pinpoint the last half year, which I call soapy when I'm not satisfied, or maybe a freshness when I think it's just enough. Systembolagets taste description says rosemary. That is the English word, right? It's rosmarin in Swedish. Maybe that's a better way to describe that flavor. I still think soapy is better. So putting these two side by side like this, and at least with these two batches, I much prefer the classic, the Seagull. Also the Oppigård was a few years later, but I have enjoyed it many times in the past. Okay, should we move on to something similarly tropical maybe? The Finn tropical NEIPA. Excuse me, sir, what is a NEIPA? Well, in Sweden, we make words out of these abbreviations. So instead of IPA, which would be IPA in Swedish, we say IPA. And American Pale Ale, APA, APA, we say APA, which funnily enough also means monkey in Swedish. I don't even know if this word exists in English, but NEIPA of course stands for New England IPA. I've had this a few times before. It was amazing in the sun on my balcony. Interesting. Now I could actually almost get some Belgian yeast character. Maybe it's the fruit in the beer that is getting old. It was canned 2 months ago, so it should still be okay, right? This one, I haven't been able to find which hops are in, but it's tropical and also a little bit either Belgian or German Hefeweizen yeasty. Not the banana, but a little bit of that. Is savory the word? Smoked salami is what I usually call it. And very soft cloves or maybe coriander. Let's dig in. Skål. I'm usually a bit skeptical to adding stuff to beers. And here you have guava and mango. But I think it works really nice. It's adding some more of that creamy, fruity mouthfeel. The flavors are also more clearly pineapple, mango. You have a little bit of that dank freshness, bitterness, and something almost peachy or apricotty, something stone fruity. Yeah, I really like this. I hope they keep making it. Water. And maybe let's move on to OO Brewing, Narangi. It's funny, I'm listening to a podcast called Ölpölen, the beer puddle. And the brewmaster of OO Brewing is part of that podcast. And the other original co-host made a song about this beer, Narangi. Maybe I'll link it over here and in the description. And you can listen to it while this video is playing. It's actually a really good song, I think. The hops are Mosaic, Citra and Columbus. So Mosaic and Citra seems to be kind of a staple if you want to make a New England styled IPA. So let's see how the Columbus maybe differs. I need to compare with Måsen. They are really similar. Maybe the Narangi is even more earthy somehow. More of that almost sweaty elderflowerish aromas. Oh, and not as dank. A bit lower on the dankness. Could that be the Simcoe missing? I don't know, but I want to learn. Let's dig in. Skål. But I could immediately feel this is a little bit stronger. 6.8%, almost going up to that 7% limit. I'm just so sensitive to the booziness. But apart from that, it's really nice. Has just enough of that, Swedish bitterness in the end. We have the sponge cake again, the tropical fruits. Let's go back to the seagull, Måsen. I thought this would be a tropical explosion, but it actually felt a bit dry and more earthy. I need to be careful now so I don't drink too much and, get sick of all these flavors. But maybe it has something after all, and maybe the high alcohol is pushing some of the flavors. Yeah, after the Måsen, this felt really, vivid. So next, I think, let's go for the Poppels. This is, can we fill it all the way up? Yes. I had this on tap from their Gothenburg City brewery. It felt so smooth, creamy, but then I've tried it on can and it wasn't the same experience. So let's see now. Poppels Hazy India Pale Ale. Skål! This one as well, I haven't been able to find out which hops are used, but it might not be the standard couple, the Mosaic and the Citra. I don't really find the pineapple. It's a little bit of mango, some sort of other tropical fruits that I can't really pinpoint. I think it's a bit more bitter as well. 6.5% ABV, so right on the money. Now for the first time I feel a malt base different from the sponge cake. This is more maybe regular white bread, so I guess it's also a bit drier. I loved it at the tap room, but on the can it's good, but it's not my favorite. Alright, let's refill the Remmarlöv, or Remmarlöv, as you kind of say in Scandinavian accent. I'm sorry, Scandinavian people. Oh yes. That's a lovely smell. It smells sweeter again, but as I remember the taste, it isn't as sweet as some of the other New England IPAs. But it has kind of some sort of grape sweetness. It's like sugary, but not artificial sugar. Maybe it's just that we are back in the sponge cake territory again. It smells delicious either way. Let's dig in. Skål! Wow, this is different. And also different from how I remembered it. Maybe it's because it isn't as... Yeah, it has wheat and oats. This is really good. It has kind of the same, mango, pineapple. It's the sponge cake. Okay, so this is listed from an external site, so I'm not 100% sure it's true. But you have Azaka, Idaho 7, and Sabro. So no Mosaic, no Citra. It has something more, so fruity and fresh. It's kind of sweet grapefruit. One of the more sweeter actually. How could I remember so wrong? But it's no added sugar or anything like that. This might be this night's biggest surprise. Yeah, if you're visiting Sweden, the southern part of Sweden, you might have a chance to get hold of this, and please do. And if you live in Sweden, order this one and try it. And let's refill the last one from Grebbestads Bryggeri. Whoop. This brewery to me is a bit uneven. They have made some lagers that I have been a bit skeptical towards. And then they make an amazing Doppelbock. But I have a theory. They make beers for tourists. Both, non-beer geeks on the Swedish west coasts and visiting Norwegians. So my theory is some of those beers are not for beer geeks, but for, the regular people. Let's have a sniff. Oh, it's also darker all of a sudden. It's a little bit of tropical notes, but also like pear or apple cider, dried apricots, something dried and almost candy-like. I think it smells great. Let's dig in. Skål! Yeah, this is drier, much more bitter. Oh, it's a dankness in the back end. I didn't notice that the first times I had this beer. Again, I wasn't able to find out which hops are in this beer. The start is kind of the sponge cake, little bit of mango, and then it disappears kind of quickly, dries out, and you're left with a pretty potent bitterness. In this company, This is actually pretty refreshing. This is also maybe a limited edition. At Systembolaget, it's already out of the online stock, and I'm guessing they won't make another one of these, but rather the Hazy Series 2. Alright, let me try these through a couple of times and see if I come to some sort of conclusion. So I would say there isn't one bad beer on this table. They all have their own strengths. I think Stigbergets, the seagull, Måsen, will never go out of style unless they make something terrible with it. The big surprise was maybe Remmarlövs Migla, probably because it uses different hops. It's not Mosaic and Citra, but it gets these tropical notes in other ways. And it's just a sweetness in here I can't explain. It's not artificial in any way, but a natural sweetness like a pillow in your soul. If this one was a regular at Systembolaget, a beer that always was on the shelf, this would be a beer I would buy every week, I think. Do you live in Sweden? Which is your favorite hazy IPA? Do you live in the US or any other part of the world? Which is your favorite hazy IPA? Check out more Swedish beer videos in this playlist. Thank you for watching, and remember, drink responsibly.